Well, I wanted to talk to you today about remembering. And again, I got you out here in the elements, and I just love showing you guys where I live, where we're at now, how we're doing life. And so you may hear a truck go by, you may hear my dogs barking, you may hear a tractor in the background, but I wanted to talk to you about remembering because as my wife and I transitioned from Texas to Florida, there were a lot of things that happened for me specifically that I went through that God really helped me process. And, it's kind of like when I transitioned out of the military, I was stable. I had structure, and transition for me was really hard. And I believe transition for a lot of people, even especially military soldiers, sometimes you get your identity from that. And it's like, well, who am I going to be? How am I going to provide for my family? How are we going to do this? And so, God worked me through the process of transitioning out of the military years ago. And then when he moved me from Texas to Florida, I had a tribe at Open Door Church. I had pastors, I had a community, and I had a job, and I had a great salary. And there was a lot of things. Again, we had that security. And then God said, all right, the season's up. I'm moving you to Florida and into something new, something you've never done before, something you didn't even expect and didn't see coming. And it was new. And so, there were some things inside of me that I didn't know were still there. And probably because I hadn't been put in positions to where where I had pressure on me the way I had that during that time. We had to sell our home. We had to buy a home. And it was just a lot of negotiations, a lot of things. And then you start thinking about like, okay, God, like I'm laying down my salary. I'm laying down my job. Like you really got me, don't you, God? And one of the things that I want to talk to you about is remembering. God in my life has shown up so many times. I mean, when I was a young kid, as a gang member, I used to get chased by other gangs. I mean, they pulled guns on me. God saved me. When I was a young boy, about 5 years old, God led me into a church. And 40 years, I got invited to speak at a church. And it ended up being the church that I got on the bus when I was 5 years old. And 40 years later, God brought me back. It was a full circle moment. And God was showing me I had been with you. You weren't with me. I was with you. I made you my son when you heard me and you got on that bus. And I'm showing you that I've always been with you. And even in your doubt, even when you didn't have a relationship with me, I had a relationship with you. And then I was shot at Fort Hood. Jesus audibly spoke to me. He blinded the shooter when I encountered him a second time. All these things that Jesus did for me. And then 2025, September, October, God's like, you're moving to Florida. And I throw my hands up and initially I'm like, yep, I got it, Lord. I'm moving out. And then all of a sudden, all the insecurities, all the fears, all the doubt just starts coming in. And how are you going to do this, God? And how am I going to provide? And how, and well, another way is what if? That's a good way to, that people who are operating in fear, they say what if, and people in faith say even if. People that operate in fear say what if. And so there was a lot of what ifs that I had inside of me that I didn't know that they were there. And God allowed me to start working through the process. And I've been through freedom work. I've had freedom. I've been through deliverance. I've had things where I thought that this stuff was gone, but it was almost like it was in layers. And I don't know. You get to see my dog. It was in layers. And so, I don't really know if some of this fear happened when, from the layers. I'm talking about the layering, but where did it come from? Did it start from when I was a boy and I lost my dad? Was it from when I was being chased as a gang member and, running for my life? And then I go to war, and as a Green Beret, I'm leaving my family and we're doing operations, just all the different things that I had experiences that maybe fear came in And so, you deal with one thing, and then it's like, okay, well, this stuff is like compartmentalized. It's these strongholds that eventually either you're partnering with. And so as you get delivered from one thing, you don't know that other things are still there. And so it's like, it's a layer, it's layers, it's a process. And so God helped me to understand the process, and he helped me in this move. All the stuff that was coming to the surface, he helped me to start dealing with it and to start getting that junk out. And one of the things that he did is he helped me to remember, right? And so that's why it talks about the shield of faith, right? So when Ephesians 6, when it talks about the wiles of the enemy, or what blocks all of the flaming swords of the enemy, it's the faith, it's the shield of faith, it's remembering what the Lord has done. If you go back into Psalms, David says, Lord, if you don't show up, like, I'm gonna die. Who's gonna worship you? But I remember you. I would have lost heart had I not seen the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Jesus has saved my life. I've audibly heard him, and he just needed me to remember some of those things. And what he did is he kind of took me back in the Bible, in, I think it's Matthew 16 verse 6, where Jesus is talking to to his disciples about the leaven of the Pharisees, like, hey, watch out for these guys. But his disciples think he's talking about bread, like, oh man, we didn't bring bread. That's what he's talking about. And Jesus is like, oh my goodness, right? He does the same thing with us sometimes. Oh my goodness, John, don't you remember? If I was talking about bread, I could multiply bread if I needed to feed the people. That's not what I'm talking about. But God used that scripture, that context to remind me, don't you remember what I've done for you? Don't you remember I was the one that called you when you were a young boy and you got on that bus. I was the one that took you back to that place 40 years later to show you that I've always been with you. I'm the one that gave you that mortgage-free home and fully furnished it. I'm the one who allowed you to retire from the military so that you can have your retirements. I'm the one. And so now in your transition, why would you think that I wouldn't be there again? I'm the one giving you 20 acres of land. I'm the one providing. And it's like, man, we just have to remember. We just have to remember the things that the Lord has done and thank him in those moments. And again, the way I talk to you, the way I share with you, is I just expose my own stuff. I mean, I just think transparency is one of the biggest things, and vulnerability and transparency is what connects with people. Guys, I'm a work in progress. The Lord is doing something in me, and I'm no different than you. The only thing is, I typically use my conversations with God, and he uses them for a message. He takes my mess and he turns it into a message, or the things he's talking to me about ends up being what he wants to talk to you about. And so in this short video, I don't even know if it's short anymore, but what he wants you to do is he just wants you to remember. Go back to what he's done for you and remember, because I'm sure, just like me, he has done miracles in your life. God has done miracles in your life. And he is saying, if I did it then, you think I wouldn't do it now? You think that the provision that I have is not available for you now? And one of the things that the Lord has me doing right now is he has me asking him. And that goes into Luke chapter 11. I believe it's Luke 11. So 11:11. So Luke chapter 11, and then but verses 10 and 11. And he's talking about being persistent in your asking, not just asking once, but in persistence, and you'll get. And the Lord has me asking him for things, and in persistence. And I believe he wants to provide for me. He just needs me to just, with my authority, appropriate, call it forth, call those things forth. And so guess what? We need a tractor. We need things on this property. My wife and I laid our jobs down. We need jobs, or we need streams of income to help us provide for what God provided. And so we're asking him, and we're starting to see, man, it's so cool. We're starting to see God's hand move. The things that we're asking for are starting to show up, and they're showing up through our friends. They're showing up through family. They're showing up through people that we didn't know. And it's like, you just see, like, man, I just spoke to God about that yesterday, and now here's the answer. And it's because he just needs us not to freak out and to be like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? God, how are you going to do it? But to operate in faith and to remember what he's done. You know, like in that Matthew 16, when he's talking to his disciples, and he's like, don't you remember I fed 5,000 and then I fed 4,000, and we only had a few loaves and fish for each time? Like, why are you even considering that? And that's me. God is just speaking to me like the disciples. Why are you even considering, John? Don't you remember I gave you a mortgage-free home? Don't you remember I saved your life when you were laying on the ground and you were bleeding out? Don't you remember? And I'm like, yeah, I remember, Lord. I'm sorry. And a lot of that too is just going back, understanding our identity as sons and daughters, and then saying, that's right, I'm a son, I'm a daughter. I have everything available to me, so then I can do anything. Last thing I want to share with you is renewing your mind. You have to renew your mind. You have to renew your mind, because so many of us have, because of the layers and layers and layers of stuff, we've had a bunch of stinking thinking. And so as God is delivering us from that stinking thinking, you can get delivered and not have a renewed mind. So then what ends up happening is you end up partnering with the lies again. You have to renew your mind. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm saying, I have the mind of Jesus Christ. I have the Prince of Peace living in me. So I have the peace of the Lord. I have the shalom and the peace of the Lord. I have love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, gentleness. I have the fruit of the Spirit. I have perfect peace because I trust the Lord. What else? It's just go through and look up all the scriptures that have to do with peace and start quoting them over yourself. Start capturing them and putting your name in the middle of them and start saying, I have the mind of Jesus Christ. I have the shalom of the Lord. I have. And what you're going to eventually, you will have what you say you have. But your mind has been programmed, like my mind has been programmed for a long time to freak out first, operate in fear, and then, now, okay, God, yeah, you are there. Rather than saying, no, my Father's always been there. I'm a son. He's got me. Don't you remember? Don't you remember what he did then? Don't you remember what he did then? Do you think that I'm in a position where he won't do it again? But in order to do that, you have to renew your mind. You have to have a renewed mind so that your default setting isn't fear, but it's faith. And you have the ability, as the Bible says, you have the ability to ask for faith, because faith is one of the gifts of the Spirit. So you can ask for faith. Lord, I ask you for faith. You know, if you're operating in unbelief, you can say, Jesus, help me with my unbelief. He is happy and willing to do it. And so I'm not speaking at you. I'm just telling you, these are the things that I'm working through. These are the things that God is doing for me. And he is turning this dude into a new creation. And it's starting here. All right. Well, I'm going to talk with you soon from Redemption Ranch, Florida. All right. See ya.